My name is Nathan Scott. I'm the Executive Director of MassEnergize, and you are at the MassEnergize November Community of Practice. So welcome, everybody. It's a pleasure to get to see so many friends. And I will just say at the outset that we typically take December off just because December is such a busy month. So you might have seen an invitation, part of an ongoing series of invitations, but we will not have a December Community of Practice meeting. So we'll have tonight's and then we'll pick up back again in January. Okay, well, it's a pleasure to have everybody here. And I just want to make a couple of quick things. And then I'm gonna invite people who are new or rejoining us after some time to introduce themselves. But tonight's topic is resilience and building resilience. As you know, we're going to have a guest speaker who's actually going to be coming a little bit later in the program. He had a prior engagement, so he's going to be joining us around 8 o'clock. So you'll get to meet Dr. Balakrishnan at 8 when he joins us, and I'll do a more formal introduction of him then. But before we get started, one of the things that I've learned about resilience from a professor at Northeastern, who's written, a professor by the name of Daniel Aldrich. He's written a book on kind of post-disaster resilience. And one of the things that he says that is most indicative or most connected to resilience are our social networks. Social capital, he feels, is the number one most important thing in building resilience. So in an effort to build our social connections, I would like folks who are either joining us for the first time or returning to introduce yourselves so that we get a chance to meet you and know who you are. So I'll just let whoever would like to just to kind of either raise their hands or just unmute yourself and speak up. So.
Hi. Oh, looks like somebody else in front
of me. Eric? Yeah, no, go ahead, Eric.
Hi. Sorry, I have a cold. My name is Eric Broadbent. I'm a member of the Northampton Climate Emergency Coalition in Western Mass. And I'm pleased to be here and take all this in. I may not be able to stay for the full presentation, but we are hoping to become a MassEnergize community. And I believe if everything goes well, we should be able to do that sometime early next year, very early next year is our plan. So I'm encouraged that may happen. And I look forward to being in the community of practice with you all. Thank you.
Well, fantastic, Eric. Thank you for being here tonight. Yes, Tony.
Yeah, Tony Lee from Wayland, Mass, active with Energize Wayland and also Can We Stop Climate Change? Working on a big event late April, early May here in Wayland, celebrating Earth Day and the opening of a net zero community building, and also educating about climate change. So
welcome, Tony. Yes, Geraldine, did I get that right? Hi, Geraldine, you'll need to unmute yourself. Unfortunately, we still don't hear you. And I don't know if I can do anything from our end, but yeah, Geraldine, unfortunately, we're not hearing you. You might want to leave and then rejoin. That might help. Yes, okay. Melanie.
Hi, everybody. I'm Melanie. I'm from Climate Reality South Coast. And I'm a new member. I was just went through an orientation process with Climate Reality, but I've been helping out doing tabling events in the community about electrification and how to electrify your home and rebates that are available and subsidies and et cetera, et cetera. So I'm excited to be part of the community, and yeah.
Well, welcome, Melanie.
Thank you.
Geraldine, do you want to try again? And
Can't hear you.
unfortunately, we're not hearing you. I'm so sorry. Okay, yeah, Margie.
Hi, Nathan. I'm Margie Lee. I live in Wayland, and I've been working a little bit with Ellen Tone here in Wayland, and of course, my husband, Tony, on climate change issues. Tony and I have been living in Wayland since about 1986. So over the years, we've been involved in a lot of climate change kinds of events. And we're currently, as he said, working on doing a lot of kind of outreach to the community in March, April, and May of next year to try and engage them. And, our town at our town meeting passed a resolution on declaring a climate emergency. And so we really are trying hard to get people to a lot of people are doing a lot of things, but to get a lot of more people in town on board with doing heat pumps and EVs and solar panels and all of those good things.
Yeah, fantastic. And it sounds like you've got quite a dynamic group in Wayland. So Margie and
We
Tony,
do. We're very lucky.
thank you for joining us tonight. Okay, Geraldine, do you want to try again?
Does that work?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, it does. Geraldine.
Yes. Sorry. Takes me a little while sometimes to get these things. I had my headphones in because I'm trying to keep noise out of the house, but if I turn them, I can't talk with them on, I guess. I'm Jerry Falco. I'm from Swampscott, and we have the Swampscott Climate and Resilience Climate Action and Resilience Committee, and that's where I'm from. And I think we are just about to become a MassEnergize community. I haven't seen it on our website yet, but I keep hearing that it's out there. So I'm just coming on to learn about this. That's what I'm here for.
Well, fantastic. And yes, we have been working with various people in Swampscott, and I think there might be somebody else on the call from Swampscott tonight, but thank you for joining us, Geraldine, and welcome to the folks in Swampscott.
Thanks.
Okay, anybody else? Yes, Vignesha.
Hi, I'm Vignesha. I'm with MassEnergize. I work with the product team. So some of the new features that you see, I work with a team to kind of push some of those features into production and keeping Brad happy. I essentially joined the team this past summer, and I've had such a great time working with the team, seeing the different efforts that we're putting into the features and the work that MassEnergize does. So this is my first meeting. I'm really happy to be here, and excited to hear about the theme tonight.
Well, thank you, Vignesha, and we might ask you to demonstrate some of the new features. So thank you, and thank you for all the work that you and the team do. So great. Okay, anybody else? There are two screens, so I'm kind of clicking back and forth. Yes, Jean.
Evening, Jean Terwilliger from Middlebury, Vermont. I think we might be the only Vermont group yet at this point.
Yes.
We started Energy Navigators earlier in the year, and I just finished, along with the two other people on my team, the Rewiring America training, which has been great. Recommend that to anybody. And yeah, happy to be here.
Great. Well, thank you. And so glad to have folks in Vermont joining us from SEAC and parts beyond, right, in Addison County. So thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us.
Mm.
Okay, any other introductions? Anybody else would like to share about who they are and what brings them here tonight? And if not, it looks, I think I got everybody, but feel free to speak up if you decide you would like to. So yeah, we have about, as I said, we have about a half an hour before our guest speaker is going to be joining us. So we do have kind of several discussion topics, but more, I would like to start with a few announcements. Typically, we like to use the community of forum to kind of share a little bit what's been going on in terms of the software team that Vignesha represents. And oftentimes we have some new features to share or some new updates, those of you who are working with the MassEnergize software. So Brad or Vignesha, do you want to take a few minutes to share any of the new features?
Sure, I can do that. I'm Brad Hubbard Nelson, and I was going to introduce Vignesha. She joined us a few months ago. She is down in New York, and the software team that she speaks about, which some of you have heard about before, is 4 engineers based in Ghana, and working with developers in Ghana it's not that far away when you're working remotely, a few time zones away. But they've been doing a great job, and I think it's been a good experience for us. But I just really appreciate the effort that they're all putting in, together with Sam Opoku Agaman, who is kind of our spiritual software leader. I want to show you a new feature that is just in production, and it is sharing of testimonials. So for those of you, I'm going to share my screen to do it. What do? I hit the green share button?
Yes.
So here we go. We have a 2-page doc. I think you can see that, although I can't be 100% sure. That will lead you through how you turn this on. But what is the idea of sharing testimonials? We feel that if you're using the community platform, having a bunch of testimonials is nice. People can go and read about why they want to do solar or whatnot. However, it's always been hard for us to get testimonials, and you really have to not coerce, but ask people quite nicely. We really like you to do a testimonial about your new car or something like that. So this is a way of getting more testimonials on all of the sites without much effort. And the idea is that when someone posts a testimonial from one community, you can decide in your community whether or not you want to share it. And the way we implement it is it's kind of automatic, and I'll lead you through that now. But this 2-page doc will be distributed through the resource library and sent via Slack and email. You'll get it. I'm just going to show you what we got. So what I should have gone to that here. All my communities. The way you enable it in the admin portal is it's a feature that you can turn on with the enable features in your community, and I have it turned on here. Testimonial auto sharing, and so when I go back, I should see I should be seeing that menu. Just a moment. Darn it. This is when I demo a feature, I find it it often shows me something that needs to be fixed, a minor detail. This edit auto share settings was showing up in my as a super admin, but it wasn't showing up as a community admin. We'll get that fixed. Here's the idea. I'm an admin for Cooler Concord, and I can choose to share testimonials from any communities I want. So I can search for a community and check the communities from which I would be willing to share testimonials. And I can also select which categories I'd be able to share testimonials from: home energy, solar, etc. And when I save those settings, then whenever a new testimonial is posted from one of those communities or end on one of these topics, it'll show up on my platform, and I'll show you how that looks. Where did that go? It was this one here. On the platform now, I happen to be filtering for solar because I didn't want to show you a whole mess of testimonials. But now I have a testimonial on the Cooler Concord platform from Energize Wayland, and then 2 testimonials from Concord. And if I was to, and it says right there, shared from Energize Wayland. If I click into it, it looks like any other testimonial, except it does say that it's shared from Energize Wayland. And somebody from Concord might say, well, maybe I don't care what people in Wayland do. They may or may not, may not care. But I think in general, most people want to read what other nearby users do, and to see, who installed it, if that's part of the testimonial, stuff like that. So this feature now, once a week, I'm going to get an email as a community admin that says, here are some new testimonials that have been shared to your site. It's like the event sharing feature where you get an email that says, here are the events that you could share on your site if you choose to. In this case, the testimonials will just show up, and I'm going to take a few minutes and just look. There'll probably be 3 or 4. I'm going to make sure that they're appropriate for my site. If it's about some action that is not appropriate for my community, I'm just going to go in on the menu and disable it. There's a new menu here that says shared testimonials from other communities. So I can go into this all testimonials menu and decide not to share this one or that one. So we're going to send out this 2-pager that just leads you through this. Want you to give it a try if you like, and you can contact us with some comments, things that are working or that you would like to see improved. I'm going to hit stop sharing now, and really appreciate your feedback.
Great. Okay. Yes. Thank you, Brad. So
does
yeah,
anybody? I'd like to get a quick show of hands. How many people think this is a useful feature that they want to try out and use on their sites? If you're a community admin, okay, that's a few people. So I'd love to hear your experience when you try it.
Good. Okay. Well, thank you. Thanks, Brad, and thanks for the software team, and I'm sure Talia is also going to be supporting the rollout here. Okay, we do have another topic just to announce, making sure people know about, and that is our upcoming 2025 Community Climate Leaders Conference. So Joe and/or Megan, do you mind giving us just kind of an update?
Hi everyone. So yes, as Nathan said, Megan and I are currently heads down planning the Community Climate Leaders Conference for 2025, which is going to be on April 30th at Bentley University in Waltham. And so we're hoping to go live with registration for that on December 1st. So that will be in our newsletter when that goes out. And also we'll be sending out a communication to everybody who attended last year, making sure that you know about it this year. And obviously all of you on this call, you'll know about it as well. So registration will be opening December 1st. And we are also currently looking for ideas, proposals, for anybody who's got any ideas for workshops or breakout sessions, whether you want to lead one or you know somebody who would be great at leading one. If you've got any ideas or suggestions, either email myself or Megan, or there is a form you can fill out, which I'll put in the chat, the link to that form. And also, as I said, it's kind of just me and Megan at the moment planning this. So also if anybody else would like to volunteer, if you've got any skills, that you'd like to volunteer your time in helping us plan the conference, again, email us. We'd love to hear from you. Megan, anything else you'd like to add?
That was
Great. Yeah, no,
So I'm
thank
just
you.
putting it.
Go ahead.
I'm just putting the link in the chat right now to the proposals for breakouts. If anybody has they'd like to share with us.
Yeah. And essentially, the climate conference will be, those of you who joined us last year, it will be a similar format. So we're having morning and afternoon workshops, morning and afternoon panels, keynote speaker, etc. It'll be a one-day conference for those of you who weren't able to join us. And it was very, very popular last year. And we got lots of good feedback, which is why we're re-upping and going to be doing it again, and hope to have it just as a regular annual feature of what MassEnergize offers. But it was really a great event last year, and we really hope all of you and many more will join us next year. So it's April 30th, as Joe said. Okay, we do have another announcement from Ricky Papo from LexCan, and talking a little bit about what Sustainable Middlesex is doing. So Ricky, go ahead.
Thanks. For those of you who may have joined us in the past, Sustainable Middlesex is it's really Middlesex and beyond. We try to gather together once a year and for an exchange of good ideas, things that work in some communities and maybe another community would like to do it. Oh, thank you. There's our poster. So this is happening on December 7th, starting at 10 a.m. We'll open the room early, 9:30, in case people just want to come early. Rebecca Tepper will be speaking. We're very excited about that. I know they're all working hard to try to keep our spirits up and focused, and our work continues no matter what's going on down in DC. So we'll have a keynote speaker, then we'll have time for questions and answers with her. Then we'll be doing about eight different topics of rapid lightning presentations. And I mean lightning, like 5-minute presentations on, for instance, geomicrogrids, food diversion. Arlington has this great program called Food Link, which gets food from all the stores in town, food that has not gone bad, but it's past the sell-by date. So in any case, I'm going to put the thing we're really trying to sell with this is this. If you see the little logo there with the seed, it's called Community Climate Actions. And this is a compendium, and I'm putting the link into the chat, of all kinds of climate actions that have been done in other towns. And what we've been doing for the past 4 or 5 months is information sessions on these particular things. 2 or 3 people can come. We do an information session for anybody who wants to learn more about how to set up a composting program in their town. And then we get a couple of experts who've done this in their town, can talk to other towns. We're just trying to spread the wealth of ideas that are happening in town. It's very similar to what MassEnergize is trying to do. So we're all trying to face this crisis together. And so I have 2 asks. One is that you join, and I will put the link. It will be virtual. I'll put the link to sign up to come. But we are also asking if any of your communities, MassEnergize is already a co-sponsor, but if any of your individual community programs like Cooler Concord or Energize Wayland would like to be a co-sponsor, and the only responsibility of co-sponsoring is to just get the word out to your community. So I'm happy to send this poster, or Nathan has the poster clearly. And I'd love it if you all would advertise this and co-sponsor. And if you tonight, if you can speak on the part of your group and say, yes, we want to co-sponsor, and we'll get the word out, just put your name in the chat and I'll reach out to you, or we'll hear from you through these other methods that people are writing about in the chat that I'm not. Ellen.
Yeah, my question, Ricky, is can you make this an event that can be in a shareable event on the MassEnergize platforms? Just add an event, you can do that.
I can do that?
You can do that, yes.
I can still do that?
You could go to the Energize. Brad, can't she just go to the Energize
Message.
I'm not
site and do it?
Well, I'm not
Doesn't
I
matter.
mean,
No,
okay.
We
if you don't
allow
have
it.
an
We
admin-
will add it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the answer is any person can suggest an event by clicking add
Okay.
event, any user of your site, and then the
Oh.
admins approve it. But then you get to write it exactly the way you want. So you could you can work with Talia, but I'll take us offline just
Right.
so people know.
Okay.
I'll do this.
We
Okay.
encourage people to add any events they want to energizema.org, Energize Massachusetts,
So you
kind
can
of the generic Massachusetts site.
Okay.
And
So
just
easy
go to
to
that
do.
site, click add an event, then you write it exactly the way you want, the image you exactly the way you want it, and work with Talia if you get messed up.
okay.
Which I know you won't, because you're very smart.
Well, thank you. And I hope to see many of you there, if not all of you. We've had up to over 500 people registered, which Brad probably remembers. We've worked with no, not last year's event, but we've anyway, it's really a great way to share ideas and learn about new things. And if you have time, just click on the link, and then you can look at it after the meeting and see the kinds of things. The other point I'll make is that this is a living list of actions. People are always coming up with new and creative ways to get the message out. So this is a living document. We plan to add to it. If you're doing something in your community that you don't see on this list, please write me. And Nathan has my email, and we love to hear new ideas, especially if somebody's willing to share about how they implemented this particular idea in their town. So anyway, I think that's it. I'll put the link in to register in case anybody would like to do that at the moment.
Great. Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Ricky. And thanks for all the work that Sustainable Middlesex does to kind of keep the conversation going. We will include the link also and the just kind of announcement about the event in our resources, which will probably be going out either at the end of this week or the beginning of next, before Thanksgiving. You'll be getting, everybody who registered for tonight's event will get an email with the resources that were shared tonight. So we'll be sure that this is shared with that. So
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, good. So just one or two other things, and then we'll I'm going to hopefully set up the topic. And then hopefully at 8, our guest is going to join us. We'll see how that works. But the last thing I just want to say from MassEnergize's side is that, as you know, we are a nonprofit, as many of you also work, with and for nonprofits. And this is, the annual fundraising time. So as all nonprofits, we do rely on the generosity of our donors, generosity of our supporters. So if you feel like you've received some support from MassEnergize, if you feel like you're able to contribute, would love to have that. I won't put the link in the chat right now, but you'll be receiving, kind of a fundraising letter from us over the course of the next few weeks. And again, we appreciate any and all donations, any and all support. And we know that you're doing hard work on the ground, and, you know, and making a lot of your own donations other than financial. But we do rely on everybody's financial support. So thank you for considering us amongst your other, you know, philanthropic donations that you give at the end of the year. So, okay, well, with that, I kind of want to use that as a segue to say that the local climate action and local climate resilience is now more important than ever. After our elections, we all know that, you know, we're not going to be seeing leadership in terms of climate from the federal level. And somebody actually asked at the last meeting, you know, given the political climate that we live in, how do we become more resilient? How do we support our own resilience? So that was kind of the topic that we chose for tonight, is how do we support both personal, but in this case, I think more directly climate resilience. So what I'd like to do is just share a couple of resources before our guest comes on. And let me just go, there's a couple of websites that I think that I have not used in any detail, but look to be having good resources. So I'm going to first share this. It's called the U.S. Climate Resilience Toolkit, and I'm just going to show you a little bit about it. So here is the U.S. Climate Resilience Toolkit, and again, any of these resources that we have, we'll be sharing with you in an email later. So you don't need to follow along unless with the URLs, unless you'd like to. But here's just something that I spent some time looking at a variety of different resources, and this looks to be a very practical and a hands-on approach to climate resilience. As many of you know, resilience often gets framed in terms of infrastructure, in terms of sea level rise, and what's our resilience to coastal erosion, and raising buildings out of the water. But one thing that I really like about this resilience on this site here, this resilience toolkit, is that it addresses resilience, in my view, a lot more holistically than simple infrastructure resilience. So you can see that they do say protect your assets from climate-related hazards. But it has several things. It has the steps to resilience, case studies, and then climate projections. And so I'm going to just click on one or two of these just to kind of show you a little bit about this site and how it's set up. So the thing that I liked about this site is that it seemed to be very user-friendly. So it's got a whole variety of ways to understand kind of what constitutes resilience and what are and again, this is steps to resilience taken from the point of view of risk. So here are some resilience frameworks. And again, I'm not going to go into any detail because I am not the expert on this, but I wanted to share with you that there's more and more resources out there as you consider resilience, and as we all collectively consider resilience. Another site, and I hope this is, do you see this? Does everybody see the new site that I went to? I don't know if it switched, but this is now called the Center for Climate and Emergency Solutions. Does everybody see that? And again, I just want to share this as a resource as we're starting to think about resilience. So this is a website called the Center for Climate and Energy Solutions. And they do a variety of things, but they have a strong section in their site on resilient solutions. And here's something called the Climate Resilience Portal. And so they've defined climate resilience here, if you can follow down in the lower right here. Climate resilience is the ability to anticipate, prepare for, and respond to hazardous events, trends, or disturbances related to climate. Improving climate resilience involves assessing how climate change will create new or alter current climate-related risks and taking steps to better cope with these risks. So one of the things, I mean, I think something that's we all know is that working on climate mitigation, which is what we're all doing, is absolutely a critical part of resilience. But I think more and more, and this is something that I've also been advised that, you know, at other levels of government where they're a little, the federal government is going to be loath to be talking about climate crisis, but resilience is something, and I think it's something that I think people are going to be able to talk about, and I think that's something that we all could and should be sharing about more, thinking about more, which is how are we adapting? I mean, we all need to be mitigating climate, the climate risks, and climate, the climate effects, and MassEnergize is firmly committed to promoting actions that and advance mitigation. But more and more, I think there's a lot more talk and discussion and need for a conversation around adaptation. So I just want to offer that as an introduction to what we're going to be talking about tonight. And rather than me talking more, I just wanted to share a few resources. I wanted to just see who is talking about resilience in your communities. How are you thinking about resilience? And so what I'd like to do is just open the floor to a little bit of a conversation until our guest speaker arrives about what are you thinking about in terms of resilience? What questions do you have? What are you thinking about? What are members of your community asking? And how are you responding to the question of how we support our own and our community's sense of resilience in the face of ever worsening climate impacts? Oh, and okay, great. And our guest has just arrived. So he's going to be, but I'm going to give him a few minutes to get settled. And so anybody who'd like to share, have you been thinking about resilience? Have you been talking about resilience in your communities? Yes, Ricky.
Years ago, but this is an ongoing program that other communities can do. Lexington went through the process of the municipal vulnerability preparedness training, and where you identify your areas of weakness in terms of resilience, flooding, fire, any of those things that will just get worse with climate change. So I would encourage any community that hasn't gone through the MVP training with the state to look into that.
Great. Okay, good. Yeah, thanks, Ricky. And Karen, I see you have your hands up. Yep.
Yeah, that Acton Sustainability Office is doing the municipal vulnerability training process 2.0, which is kind of like what it is what Ricky just described, but this time the emphasis under the 2.0 process is on making sure that voices in the community are heard, and especially from parts of the population whose voices might not normally be heard in government decision making. So it's been really interesting. They just had the Sustainability Office just had a MVP community potluck last Saturday to get feedback from people, not only on risks related to flooding or drought or fire or heat, but also to talk about social resilience and making sure that we're developing stronger community pathways for communication and supporting people who maybe don't have as many resources, who don't have a car to get out of town if something's happening, et cetera. So it was a really good conversation.
Great. And that is a great segue into what we're going to be talking about in just a moment. And I see our guest is here, but does anybody else want to share or say or offer anything before we turn to our guest? Yes, I see two people. Jerry,
Yes.
Berlin,
Can you hear me?
Randy.
Okay, good.
Yes, we can hear you. Yes.
Our climate action plan is called Resilient Swampscott, and it is mainly because we're on the coast, and a lot of what our concerns are infrastructures of major importance that are close to the coast, as well as people that live along the coast. And so we're trying to, and we're actually doing the MVP too as well. So we are an MVP community. I mean, that's kind of where we come from, is resilience, to try and say it's not just, you know, climate change, not just getting everybody to have a, you know, electric house and electric car and all that other kind of stuff. We need to make sure that we're resilient in this town. And those conversations are actually coming through in our town administrator and through our committee. And we have like a renewable energy committee as well that starts with that, doing those kind of things. And that's kind of where we are. I don't have any examples straight out for what we're doing. There's just, you know, what can be done for our protecting water coming up onto the streets and things like that during storms or even just high tides.
Great, good. Thank you. So Wendy in Newburyport, and then I see Susan Olshoff, you've got your hand up. So yeah, Wendy, you're muted. There you go.
So in Newburyport, we do have a resilience committee who works with the government in town but it is more on structural projects, because we also are on the coast and there's flooding and potential flooding. But they have moved a little bit more into social resilience. So they've had forums in different parts of the city. And they did have the speaker that Nathan mentioned at the beginning of our meeting come and talk, and I can't remember his name now, from Northeast.
Daniel Aldrich.
Yes, so he came and spoke to the community, and that was very good, but I don't think I don't know what has happened yet to really follow on to that. There's, you know, we need kind of a roadmap to do that. And then we've had a few other meetings. So
great.
Moving along in that direction.
Good. Thank you. Okay, Susan.
Hi, everybody. We're focusing on the youth of today, because while they may not get so involved in, you know, flooding and the big issues, they're freaking out. And part of resilience is creating a new generation who understand what's happening, giving them tools, starting to introduce them to the jobs that are going to be needed in the future. So we have 2 programs. I invite anybody, if your town is interested in working with youth, contact kulacommunities.org and learn about our school programs. We have enrichment programs where we're getting kids to figure out how they can treat windows in schools that have no air conditioning, that are unbearable not only in the summer, but in the late spring. And so anyway, we also have a book called The Energy Detective that we'll give to any elementary school for every student at no cost to introduce young children to the topic. So we can't forget our little ones. I'm happy to tell more at any point if someone's interested.
Yeah, thank you, Susan. And as we, I think, all know, but many of you, Cooler Communities is doing just a remarkable job in terms of really reaching the younger, you know, the kind of elementary and middle school set with, as well as some high school programs with climate issues and climate curricula. So
thank you.
Okay, well, I think I don't see any more hands. I'm sure other people would be happy to share, but I'm going to take this opportunity to introduce our guest tonight. So Dr. Balachandran is the Executive Director of the Sustainable Solutions Lab at UMass Boston, where he specializes in climate resilience for historically excluded communities. With over 30 years of experience, he brings insights into resilience planning, post-disaster recovery, affordable housing, and more. So Dr. Balachandran, thank you for joining us tonight. We're looking forward to your presentation. And if you want to go ahead, you can just hit share if you've got your presentation ready. You can just hit share and get started. But thank you for being here.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure interacting with Nathan, and I met some of you possibly at the gathering last week. And I'm looking forward to interacting with you now. So let me get started with a little bit of self-introduction and to the organization that I represent here. So good evening. Thanks again for giving me an opportunity to speak to you. I've been learning a little bit about MassEnergize and its community of practice from Nathan, and I think your journey is really inspiring to say the very least. I hope at some point we get to join forces in the cause of climate action. So as Nathan said, I go by Bala. My full name is a mouthful. I'm trained as an architect and urban planner. I spent the better part of my career working on post-disaster recovery. And I also worked on sustainable sanitation and sustainable transportation, mostly in the global south, in India, the surrounding countries, then a little bit in West Asia, and a little bit in Latin America. And then I made a late career shift to research. I came to the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign to do my PhD, where my research was on disaster-induced relocation, displacement and relocation in coastal Louisiana, a region which, as you all know, is now severely impacted by climate change. And that led me to pivot from post-disaster recovery to resilience and adaptation to climate change. I joined the Sustainable Solutions Lab as the executive director in February of this year. So I'm still kind of new to the organization, and I'm also kind of new to Boston. We moved here only last year. I live in West Newton with my wife and a 9-year-old daughter. So the Sustainable Solutions Lab, as Nathan said just now, is a collaborative research and action institute focused on keeping historically excluded people and communities safe as our climate safe and healthy as our climate changes. So our work is aligned with the UMass Boston's grand scholarly challenges, as articulated in its strategic plan. In fact, we had our unit, Sustainable Solutions Lab, had a role to play in the way these challenges were described. So these are like climate equity and urban coastal areas, bridging divides in health equity, education for the future, and advancing a just society, local and global dimensions. We have a core team consisting of myself, an associate director, a research director, and 2 senior faculty mentors. And then we have 3 graduate students working with us now. That number varies, 2 undergraduate interns. And we also have university affiliates that includes faculty, researchers in other centers and institutes, and staff in some departments, and doctoral students. So the acronym for Sustainable Solutions Lab is SSL, and my colleagues have sort of cutified it as SIZZLE. So we go by SIZZLE. So a little bit about what we do. So we advance transdisciplinary climate research, which is community engaged and focused on equity and justice. So some of our recent work includes a study of climate change impacts on transient populations, mainly homeless, but also very recent migrants. Another study on a network analysis of connections between stakeholders working on climate adaptation in Greater Boston. Some of your organizations may have been interviewed in that study. I'm not sure. I wasn't involved in that study. It was before I joined. And we are now starting work on a study to facilitate access to water infrastructure in an underserved neighborhood called El Punto in Salem, Massachusetts. We're also doing another project on the resilience of the Cape Cod main line, the rail line. We're looking at the safety of the embankments on which the rail line sits. We also work on network building, capacity building, and field building. We do this through the Northeast Climate Justice Research Collaborative, a network that we created and we sustain. This is mostly researchers and practitioners in the New England region. We have some people from New York as well. And another activity that we organize is the Climate Adaptation Forum, which we co-organize with the Environmental Business Council of New England. It is at one of the climate adaptation forum events that I met Nathan, and that's why I'm here. We also organize other subject-specific workshops. For example, we recently organized a workshop on transformative community engagement, which was sort of, researchers and practitioners who do community engagement came together and shared their insights and experiences. This was an internal process of learning to build up towards, developing community engagement practices that are truly transformative. I would also like to mention a very significant research agenda at CISL. So last year, we won a planning grant from the National Science Foundation. Usually, planning grants lead to a proposal for a center grant, either to create a new center or to enhance an existing one, which is that's what it is in our case. We already have Zizzle, and we wanted the funding to build it out further. So in the work that we did on this using this grant, we worked on three thematic areas. The first one is climate migration. Climate migration can be looked at global scales or at national scales or at local scales. So we've not zeroed in on a particular scale, but mainly our area of interest is Greater Boston and Massachusetts, and to a certain extent New England. So we would be looking at displacement and relocation at that scale. The second one thematic area was climate change and health. So health impacts on populations that are particularly vulnerable to and exposed to the impacts of climate change. The third thematic area is indigenous knowledge and governance. So this is something we did in collaboration with another institute at UMass Boston. It's called the Institute for New England Native American Studies. They work with several indigenous tribal communities in the New England region. And then we had a cross-cutting theme. We called it Decision Support Hub. This theme basically looked at how decision science can be applied to help communities take decisions on climate action, especially resilience. So this project has an important role in driving the future of Sizzle. It might even contribute to rebranding the organization. So I must also mention that the name Sustainable Solutions Lab doesn't really reflect the bulk of the work that we do, which is focused on climate justice. So that's why this will lead to rebranding the organization. So we are in the process of finalizing our strategic plan for the next 5 years. When we are close to finalizing. We were close to finalizing before the election results were announced. So we'll have to now, look at some aspects of the strategic plan to, figure out what we need to change. Okay. So there are two emerging strategic priorities that this group, your group, might find interesting. The first is community engaged collaborative action research, and the second, which is kind of related, is to facilitate community-led initiatives to address the root causes of vulnerability. In academic parlance, we refer to it as transformative adaptation. That is, you adapt to climate change in a way that no longer puts you at risk in the same way that you were before. So here is how I see the future of community engaged work at Sizzle. So my dream is to build a core team at Sizzle with a program manager who will focus on community engagement, supported by a small team and guided by the leadership. And simultaneously, we connect with a network of CBOs, or we, even connect with some CBOs directly if there is sufficient demand of that sort. On the other side, we put together a team of faculty, researchers, and staff who are interested in doing community engaged work and have knowledge and skills to offer to the communities that we connect with. So the idea is that we work with communities through a network or directly, and identify through studies and community-led interactions, identify areas that need work, in terms of building resilience. And then we look at who in our faculty and researchers and even in the other institutes and centers on campus who can contribute to work on those aspects. And we should produce concept notes 2-3 pages long for each area that the community is interested in working on, so that when there are funding opportunities, the communities are ready with their asks, which can be easily or quickly developed into full proposals. Usually what happens is, the government announces a funding program. Those who are quick on the uptake get ready with proposals. They become the gatekeepers for the funds. They come to the community and say, hey, we have money for A, B, C, and D. Are you interested? And then, the community has to say yes or no and toe their line. So in the process that I have in mind, the communities would have their needs clearly articulated and sort of ready to develop them into full-fledged proposals when a funding opportunity arrives. So many of us have been watching the news these days with a sinking feeling in our stomachs. At least I am in that spot. Many challenges loom ahead. My own unit, Sizzle, is 100% grant funded. I'm worried because federal funding for my kind of work, and I suspect for your kind of work, might dry up. Competition for private funding will ramp up. Universities, scientists, researchers would all find the going harder than before. Environmental activists will find that EPA norms are being diluted. Legislative support for some of the things that they want to do might be dwindling, and so on. But believe me, this too shall pass. We have work to do. So I'd like to open this up for discussion. Now I've listed a few points that I thought is important. As I mentioned a short while back, I'm developing this program for community engaged action research. In working with communities, I expect that the starting point would be to identify the most underserved, vulnerable segments of the community's population, then explore their exposure and vulnerability to specific climate change impacts like urban heat or flooding, storms. How will they be impacted? And then figure out strategies to build resilience. So we could identify assets that we can build on or mobilize. It could be social networks, institutions, public spaces, public facilities. Finally, the question that I would like to discuss the most with you today is how can we enhance our capabilities by working together? So this graphic on the side, I stole that from a presentation that, from a meeting that I was part of this morning. This is called Resilient Mass Metrics. So this is connected to the Resilient Mass Plan, which consists of strategies for building resilience at state level and local level. So they look at environmental justice, equity, and collaboration as a cross-cutting theme, which overlays your work on resilience in several sectors like natural environment, health, economy, infrastructure. That includes housing. It's shown separately here, but they've combined it, and food and water security and government services. So I thought that that's a very good representation of all the dimensions of resilience and how equity and justice sort of cut across all these themes. And with that, I'll stop. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Bala. I'm sure there's going to be questions or comments. But Bala, before we get to that, I just want to ask one question: is how might people here, how might they approach you in terms of with ideas or the kind of collaborations that you were referring to on kind of resilience projects? If somebody has an idea for a resilience project, how might they get the support or engagement of UMass Boston?
So to respond to that, let me briefly explain how we operate. So our core team, which is, as I described earlier, the executive director, associate director, and part of the research director's time. She's a full-time professor. This is funded by the Bar Foundation. They have funded us for 6 years. It's ending in December, and they've extended us our funding for 2 more years. So we said to Bar Foundation that we will use their support to develop this program that I described for community engaged action research. So the way I anticipate going about it is if I have the opportunity to engage with the members of this group, either through MassEnergize or directly, then I can contribute my time using my Bar Foundation funding to conceptualize some of the things that we might want to do together. And then we can both go look for funding. That's the way I would see it. As of now, I don't have funds of my own to deploy in resilience projects in communities. But if I have, and I'm just beginning to work on this, so if I have a bunch of organizations that show interest, then it is possible for me to go to a large funder and say, look, there is a demand. This is the kind of demand that we see. Can you put aside not only funds for working with each of these groups on issues that they're interested in, but also to maybe fund at least a few small projects directly. This is my plan.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you. So yeah, I'll opening it up for questions, comments, reactions to Bala's presentation. Any thoughts, or anybody who's working on resilience in any of your communities, ideas for projects you might be interested in pursuing? Eric?
Just a question. Could Bala give an example perhaps of a critical resilience project that serves the underserved community? That'd be great. Thank you.
Sure. So one project that we are already starting to work on is, as I mentioned earlier, it's in a community called El Punto in Salem, Massachusetts. Now, this is a predominantly minority neighborhood. They have drinking water quality issues. Their water supply system has not been, the lead pipes have not been removed, so there is concern about lead, and there is also concern about the actual safety of the water that the people are receiving at the end of the pipe. So here, what we are going to do is there is a small team that will be that will start working with community leaders and community-based organizations. They already have some experience of working in that area. So there is another institute in UMass Boston called the Mauricio Gaston Institute for Latino Studies. So they have experience working in El Punto. So they are going to interact with the community through focus group discussions, a survey, and a particular kind of qualitative research method called body mapping. And they will get a deeper understanding of how the community experiences the issue. Then we'll bring in technical experts through a partnership with the New England Environmental Finance Center, which is based out of the University of Southern Maine. And through their technical assistance, will help the community find actual solutions and funding. So this is one example. Another example is Sizzle had supported a summer program for high school students were run by the Urban Planning and Community Development Department. And part of that summer program and follow-up work was for the students guided by faculty of the Urban Planning Department to work in the students' communities. These were students from environmental justice communities in Boston. They worked on urban heat issues. So they explored the issue and they came up with a project for improving one of the urban spaces with more tree cover and water elements for cooling. So essentially creating a space where people can go to in summer when it's too hot. We are just entering into a conversation with the Blackstone River Watershed Association. Now they have several, they have a network of CBOs in the watershed, including a band of the Nipmuc tribe. And there is, they mentioned a neighborhood in Worcester, the Green Island, which has serious flooding and other resilience issues. So we're now talking to them to figure out how to, initiate the kind of process that I was just describing. How do I, start working with them, write up a concept note, find technical assistance. The EPA has a program called Thriving Communities Technical Assistance Centers. So they are mandated to provide technical assistance to resilience issues and other environmental issues in communities. There are many centers. Each one has a catchment area. So there is one that serves our region. So we can, once we have an idea what the issue is, and we have some broad idea how to go about it, then we can approach these centers for technical assistance. And somebody in UMass might also be able to help other professors. I hope that helped.
Wow, very impressive. Thank you very much.
Yes, Karen Watkins.
Yeah, I wonder, do you have any suggestions for resources or books that highlight effective social and community resilience in the face of climate?
Yes.
Are there any books that inspire you?
There are many. So how about this? I'll work with Nathan and put together a folder of material that can be shared, including, if there are books that I, cannot be shared like that, then the references to those books, and we'll disseminate it through MassEnergize so that all of you get access to it.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Karen, I'll just mention just really quickly that Daniel Aldrich, this professor at Northeastern, has written a book. His book is really more on social resilience in the face of more, catastrophes, disasters, flooding and, tsunamis in Japan. But it's very applicable to climate resilience as well. And he really focuses on the social and community aspects of climate resilience. And his book, I'll put a link into that in the resources as well. Yes, okay, I did see a hand before somebody. Oh yeah,
Tony.
Wendy and then Tony Lee. Yeah, Wendy Wilkerson. Oh, Wendy, we can't hear you.
Okay.
There
So
you go.
I think it was a wonderful presentation, and I'm very excited to hear about all the work that you're doing. I just feel like we just don't have the bodies, the people to really start working on some of these projects. I mean, we come up with some good ideas and things we want to do, and then it's just like nobody there to take it over. And start up a new project yet.
Hmm.
So I just wanted to mention that. I just wish we had more people.
May I respond to that before we go to Tony?
Sure. Yeah, go ahead, Bala.
So one of the proposals that we submitted very recently to a foundation, which did not get invited to the next level of review, was to work with CBOs and co-develop training programs for the staff of community-based organizations on how to integrate climate resilience into the CBO's regular work. So, resilience, it doesn't have to be an add-on. I mean, is what I'm trying to say. It could be, if with the right exposure to the concepts involved in resilience, you could look at it as a theme integral to everything you do.
Good. Okay. Yes, Tony, and then James. Tony, you're muted. Okay, go ahead.
So a book that I just finished reading, which was very helpful, was called Hope for Cynics by Jamil Zaki.
Hope for Cynics. I don't know that.
And the difference between a cynic and a skeptic and healthy skeptics. It was really, I kind of use those words interchangeably, but they are very different.
True, absolutely true. Thank you for that reference. I'll also look up that book. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, James, Jim Pepperell.
Hi. Yeah, I just wanted to mention, Wendy, in response to your comment about not having people to serve, I work as part of a group called NC4, which is the North Central Climate Change Coalition, and we're having we try to host. I think there are 19 communities. It's basically all the communities, kind of north and west of 495. So Lori Trahan's congressional district, I think is the 3rd congressional district. So it will be out of your district, but we do have people that represent some of these rural towns, and we have had a big challenge finding people in rural towns fewer than 10,000 people, fewer than even 4,000 people. They have no extra person can serve on a committee. It's literally, there's no issue. But we are, for anybody who's interested, we're meeting on Wednesday. I posted the link in the chat, and one of the issues we're going to discuss is an idea that Tony Beatty had, which was matching immigrants with farms, with unused farmland in Massachusetts. So it's a little bit of a stretch from climate change, but I think it's an interesting social and community engagement issue. So thank you for your time.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Okay, any other comments or questions, reflections? Okay, if I don't see any, just wanted to take a moment to thank Bala. Thank you for your time, for the work you're doing, and really appreciate the offer and the invitation to be in partnership potentially with CISL and the UMass Boston. So Bala will also include your contact information in the resources. And is that all right for people to be able to contact you
Absolutely.
directly?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And thank you very much for this opportunity. I guess you have logistics to, close off the meeting. So thanks a lot. Great meeting you. And
yeah, great. And we'll just, take a few. Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
But yeah, we'll thank you, everybody. I mean, we don't need to stay on unnecessarily, but just wanted to, as I said, remind you all that next month we are not going to be having our community of practice, but we'll start up again in January. I don't know what the first or the second Monday in January is. Is it the 9th, I think? Joe, do you have it there? But anyway, you'll see in our follow-up email, we'll be sending you some information. So, okay, before we close out, is there anybody want to make a quick announcement or any other questions or concerns before we wrap up? And then, wish everybody a good holiday coming up, Thanksgiving and into the winter holidays. Okay, well, if not, thank you all, everybody. Look for an email in which we'll be sending some follow-up emails. I'm sorry, some follow-up resources. Okay, yeah, and Megan has just put it in the chat. The next community of practice will be January 13th, the second Monday in January. So we do hope you'll join us for that, and have a wonderful Thanksgiving coming up and wonderful winter holidays.